What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex. In this video, I want to talk about if Scream 7 is quote-unquote doomed or not. Thought this would be an interesting topic just because of the variety of opinions on it, and then maybe we can start to move after this to certain things that they could do to fix these problems. And obviously, things are still going forward, right? So there is still news to be kind of talked about and reported and theorized and all that stuff, but I want to say like a few things. Number one, we got to try to figure out what the online community, how much of that really reflects the Scream community at large. Maybe not Scream community, maybe that's not the right word, but the people that would actually go out and see these movies. Because that's really, to me, the first thing you have to think about when you classify this thing as dead or not dead or doomed or not doomed, right? Is simply, well, these people, like me, we are making a big deal out of this stuff. And because I think it is a big deal, at least to certain people. But right there, right, that's the mark. And it's like, well, outside of this community, does losing these two characters do anything? There's a lot of different directions I think you can go. One direction we went, even in the live stream I did a few days ago, was, of course, talking about kind of the younger generation. And I do think that is a fair thing, and that is probably the strongest point to bring up in regards to, okay, well, when you lose, and I honestly think, and this is not a slight against Melissa, because Sam is actually the bigger character. Sam, I liked her more in 6. I think I still give a slight edge to Tara character-wise in general. I think she had 2 really good movies, whereas Sam was kind of like 1 and 1. But these are strong characters. But again, not a slight, but also just kind of saying the facts. Losing Jenna Ortega is a lot bigger than losing Melissa in terms of people that go to theaters. Now, one thing that I've always talked about is the impact of these actors and if they actually make an impact in the box office. I personally do not believe that they do. I'm fully aware that that is actually a minority kind of opinion. I think many people would disagree with me, and that is fine. I would just say I think the age of these superstar celebrity actors that actually get butts in seats are long gone. And I think it is possible to sway it a little bit. I think Jenna Ortega has some power, but that kind of moves into my first point. How much power does she have? Well, I think that it is like measurable. I think you probably can actually see it, but I don't think it's like ridiculous. So if you think, okay, well, without Jenna, they're going to lose, say, $35-40 million. I think that is outright false. I don't think that's true. In the same way, I said that about Neve Campbell. I said, Neve Campbell, maybe it's $5 million, maybe it's $7 million, maybe it's $2 million. You think about prices of tickets and then also like people that go. I mean, yeah, tickets are outrageously, priced right now, but even if it's like $20 a person, if you want to say $5 million that a movie doesn't make because a star is not in it, that's a lot. That's a lot of people that star is impacting, and I just don't think it's all that much, at least for most cases. I think somebody like a Tom Cruise, a Johnny Depp, say like 10-15 years ago, Jenna Ortega to a degree now, but I do think she's on the smaller end. And so in that way, well, where am I going with this? Well, box office wise is kind of where I wanted to start, right? Like, is the movie doomed in terms of a financial thing? To be honest with you, I don't think it's as doomed as even we would think it is right now. I think we're kind of living in the moment, which is not a bad thing. And I wouldn't advise to go against it, because I do think we need to speak up and voice opinions, good or bad. I think we need to do that just in general, right? So I'm not saying to like calm down or, stop what you're doing. But I do think we're so in the moment. We're so energized, I guess. And I think it'll still make an impact. I think this movie will probably suffer, which we'll talk about. There's a kind of a difference though, right? The quality of the movie because of losing these two, and then the performance of the movie because of losing these two. Performance, money, I really don't think is going to be all that bad. In fact, I would say it's kind of like you could almost erase it. Now, maybe not. Maybe it's a difference of $5, $10, $15 million. Maybe they lose and maybe the next one opens up at 140, 130, like for its entire run. Now, that's definitely a step back, and that would probably be the end of Spyglass. At least I would hope so, right? Because you want to kind of move up each time. You don't want to go backwards, and this would be a pretty big back step, which is kind of the best case scenario. You'd kind of hope that this movie can figure itself out, be entertain enough people, but then also like signal, yeah, we've had enough. Like, yeah, you shouldn't have the rights anymore. I think that's what ultimately should happen. So money-wise, is it doomed? Honestly, I don't think so. I really don't, because I think it can still make its money back, especially now that you don't have to pay your lead star. Now, however much Melissa was, going, whether it was a couple million, 2 million, 2.5, 1 million, however much it was, Jenna, right? So you lose, technically the budget just, got smaller. Now you might have to pay other people a little bit more now. So maybe it kind of all, evens out. And it depends on, I guess, how the numbers shake out. Now, is it doomed in terms of like quality, in terms of the entertainment value? Well, there's one other thing, I guess, element of being doomed, and that's, I think, the constant eyes on it, like the constant talk about these issues. And it's something we've talked about in the live streams. One thing I am not looking forward to is I don't think the Scream community necessarily has it in them, right? We're a very loud bunch, we're a very dedicated bunch, but we're also a very divided bunch, and we already do some odd things that it looks like on Twitter and other places. So to have a situation like this play out, and then the movie is most likely still going to happen, and then people are going to see said movie, or you're going to make videos, say me, on said movie, or whatever. I think there's going to be a lot of finger pointing and name calling, much more than what we got with, say, Nev Campbell, right? When Nev, that whole situation played out, there was a little of it. There was a little kind of like drawing the line in the sand and saying, hey, if you see this movie, what does that really say about you, right? Because you're supporting this when they did this to her, right? And people made excuses, or people made valid arguments. It depends on how you looked at them, right? I think it's going to be that times like 200 for this, because I think it's obviously a bigger world deal, of why the whole Melissa thing happened. And now you lose your main star. You fire her, you let her go, whatever you want to call it, but you do it in a much different, I would say, more severe way than what you did with Nev. And you lose two of them because you fumbled the bag, with Jenna Ortega. So I think, again, like, you could say, well, you're making a big deal of it. Well, maybe I should amend my earlier statements. Maybe there's three ways the movie can be doomed. There's the money, which we just talked about. There's this way, which is kind of like no matter what happens, there's going to be so much divisiveness, which there already kind of is in the Scream community, but there's going to be even more because you're going to draw your line in the sand. I'm not saying like you in particular. I'm saying what feels like the loud Scream, like, online fandom. But again, going back to, I guess, to the money thing, do they even matter, right? Does that even make an impact? So maybe we just have to stop kind of like living online. Maybe that's the moral of the story. Now, performance-wise, okay, in terms of how the movie is quality, that one I would easily hear you out the most. I think the divisiveness, like people calling each other things for supporting it or not supporting it, I think that's going to happen regardless. So that one's kind of like a lock. The money thing is definitely debatable because you just don't know. But something like this one, I feel like, based off of the rumors, and they are just rumors of the plot that, of Scream 7, I was already a little worried. We talked about it in past videos. I like parts of it. I don't like the killers. I don't like exactly how that was playing out. So to say I have a lot of faith in the writing capabilities of these two, not really all that high, okay? So I don't feel all that great about that. I don't feel all that safe that even if they move the Sydney storyline over, that it won't feel recycled, and that I want them to obviously redo some stuff because now we potentially know a killer. Yes, you can transform it into like a red herring, but maybe they don't, right? So I do get worried about that stuff. And I do get pretty concerned about how you can like replace these two. Now, look, it's easy to say, like, just do the OGs and stuff like that. And then you could argue, okay, well, will OGs like bring in the money in the same way that, a younger person? And we've talked about that. I think generally it's not a great move, which is ironic because we all kind of wanted Nev back for 6, and we might get her back for 7, but yet again, it's not really what we want anymore. So like, it's been such a short amount of time, but so much has happened, right? I will agree with the idea, and this was brought up in a live stream of mine earlier, where like so much of the newer audience is younger, and so to bring back these legacy casts, it's not going to do much for them. And I would agree, and maybe that does impact the money in some way. I don't know for sure. You could argue, well, would they just try to find like a hot young name in the way of like a Jenna Ortega, or like somebody that's very popular that's, say, under 25? Yeah, you'd hope so, but how many of those exist in the world, right? How can they actually get them to join their movie now? You have to also like worry or wonder of like tainted in a way where it's like, do people accept the offer anymore from these guys because it's just you see what happens kind of with Nev in the last go around, and now these two for this go around. So I would get worried about that, but just like the writing quality, it's easy to say to make like a Sydney, centric thing, but do you have faith in the writing of a Sydney centric thing? And I gotta say, maybe I'll be the first one to say it. I'm interested to see what that would look like, and I don't think, honestly, it would be guaranteed to be bad. I think it could work. It could work money-wise. It could all, work out, but it also could not. And not necessarily in terms of like performance and stuff, but in terms of the actual writing and making it work and it feeling, and I mean, this goes into a longer conversation that we won't get into, at least in this video, about like this disconnect, right? You had 5 and 6, 7 supposed to be the finishing, and we've talked about this, right? And then you'd be going in such a wildly, you'd be going in such a wildly different direction than what you have been doing previously. And now, again, to be fair and to be kind of as aware as possible, and I try to pride myself on that, maybe that doesn't matter. Like to a lot of people, maybe to the majority of people, it does not matter if this thing doesn't feel in line with what they did in 5 and 6. People could probably care less. People don't have that kind of attention span. Most people don't have that kind of connection to Scream. I think Scream is propped up by like a vocal and a passionate, it's not just people who talk, people that do genuinely support this thing for their entire lives and since the beginning, right? It is very special in that way. And that's a group that keeps it around forever, but the group that keeps it successful, like pushes it over, is not us, right? It's actually like the wider audience that just their care is drastically lower. They may not care, if we get the ending of Sam's story and, things like that. And that's fair, I guess. I mean, I'm not like in love with that about society, but that's just kind of what you have to deal with, right? So I guess, yeah, the short answer is, money-wise, are they doomed? No, although I could easily see them losing maybe 10, 15, if you really want to pitch me on like 20 million. And that's a mix, though. That's not just on, losing actors. I think it would also be on the performance of the movie and what's to come after. Like maybe Nev doesn't sign on. Okay, so now you don't have Jenna, you don't have Melissa, you don't have Nev. Is Courtney not coming back? Okay, there's another one. And this could definitely snowball. Right now, with those two gone, what would it do? I do think it would lose money. I think just by at least not having Jenna, but I don't think it's like 50, 60, 70. I don't think it's half of the money it made was simply to go support, Wednesday, right? I don't think that's true. So I think that would take a, back seat, but it could maybe be made up for in another person that you hire, or if the movie's better than 5 and 6, you never know, right? In terms of, again, the divisiveness and name calling, that stuff's going to happen. And then in terms of, is it doomed? In terms of like the quality of it, doomed is a popular word, and I think a lot of people are kind of throwing it out there of like, is the movie completely screwed or not? I don't know if I'd go all the way, right? I don't think I'm ever really kind of that guy to say like it's going to be the greatest thing we've ever seen in our lives, or it's going to be the absolute worst, like dumpster fire. It could be right in the middle, right? So is it doomed? I don't have a lot of confidence in the writing. I don't think it's as easy to just give it all to Sydney and just like let it be, because I think it takes more than that. And then I also was not a fan, at least of the rumor plot thing that was already happening. And then if you move that over I feel like that would be pretty weak, especially now because we already know, right? So I'm not thrilled with that one, but again, maybe they can surprise me. And like I said, for as many people that say, well, Alex, the best course of action is to cancel it. I hear you. I get it. I think that's a very valid, response to this. I think maybe they should talk about just ending it here and I've pitched that. Just take a breath. Just sit back and just let's all breathe. Can you possibly like apologize? Can somebody get hit on the head and like wake up and realize the mistakes they've made? I think that's wishful thinking. I don't think that's going to happen, but that's what I would want. Just like take a step back, think about what's happened, try to fix things. What's most likely going to happen is things being rushed, them still trying to make certain schedule deadlines, and the movie's still 99% likely happening, and then we'll have to see what happens, like with the quality and all that stuff. So obviously, again, there's more to talk about. There'll be more videos over this next week, but also I guess we have to start keeping our eyes peeled for, do they announce something, somebody, right, to try to like drive people away from the news of Melissa and Jenna. I think they do, and I think they do it in the next couple of weeks. So maybe there's something big that happens in the next little while, and there's a lot to talk about, and I'll still be doing it, on the channel. Let me know what you guys think. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on. I hope to see you all on the next one.